Welcome to the Shootin' Show. Stand by for shots fired.
Hello, I'm Johnny Rowland, your host of the Shootin' Show, and welcome again to this week's program. We have some great features for you. In fact, I hope we can get some things done before the rain starts on this particular segment, but it's still a great day to be out shooting. So, let's let another Shootin' Show begin. Now today, friends, we're going to look at one of the very finest home defense guns or competition revolvers that I have ever seen. This is the great Smith & Wesson Model 625. It's in 45 ACP. Now the first thing someone will say is, well, how can you shoot a pistol cartridge in a revolver? And that's a good question. What we have are full moon clips, which we're going to show you, that hold 6 rounds at a time.
Now, as most of you know, the 45 ACP cartridge is a true rimless case, and it needs to have a clip or some fastener of some sort to give it headspace, and also so it can be ejected from the cylinder of the revolver. The ejector star will not catch on the rimless case. Now, an alternative to the clip loading devices are the 45 auto rim cartridge cases, but they're hard to find now. You have a little difficulty finding them almost in any store, but the clips offer so many advantages and they're so simple to work with. That's what we're going to be using today.
As I was saying a moment ago, the 6 cartridges fit into the clip. Now, as you've heard me say on many occasions, and we'll show you a close-up of the full moon clip, and by the way, these are made by Ranch Products, and we're going to give you their address, their mailing address, because they're inexpensive. These little full moon clips last, I don't know, I hadn't worn one out yet, so they last for a long time. Let me remind you, this is a clip and this is a magazine. A lot of the good folks out there are calling the magazines now, they're calling them clips. They're really not. Those of us with an ROTC or military background have received lectures on why this is a magazine and this is a clip, but we're going to have to let that pass. In fact, I may have to give up my terminology there, because some of the magazine companies themselves now are calling magazines clips, so we won't belabor that point. Anyway, what you have is the ability to reload your gun very rapidly. And of course, Jerry Michalik, the great revolver shooter, can do this faster than you can blink your eye just about. But it's so neat. We have 6 rounds and they literally just fall into the chamber. And of course, they're all ejected at one time. Now then, friends, one advantage for home defense that the 625 has over, say, some other revolvers, especially if someone doesn't have speed loaders, here your clip literally acts as a speed loader. And in fact, it is faster than any other speed loader or way to load a revolver. So what you can do, if you have children in your house, you can store the ammunition in the clip somewhere else, and all it takes is just a second and your gun is reloaded. So that is certainly one feature that's worthwhile. Now, Ranch Products also makes a mechanism by which you can unload the clip with the 45 ACP cartridges, and it works very simply. You just slide the loader in underneath the empty cartridge case and grasp the clip and the cartridges with your other hand and just pull, and it takes it right out. It's so simple and so easy, and because unloading the clips, if you do a lot of shooting, is a little bit of a pain, so this little tool does make it very handy. The good folks at Ranch Products also offer full moon clips for the 9mm revolvers as made by Ruger and Smith & Wesson. They also make a number of other accessories, including clips made of stainless steel now, if you so desire. They're very nice people, and if you have one of these guns, or of course they're still making clips for the Smith & Wesson 610 revolver, the 10mm revolver, which in fact was one heck of a fine gun. It's no longer in production, but that's something else that those folks do. So I suggest you write them at Ranch Products and get one of their catalogs. Like I said, the clips are very inexpensive, and it's awfully good knowledge to have on hand. Anyway, one of the advantages that the 45 ACP revolver has as a defensive gun, and we're going to talk about competition in just a minute, but as a defensive gun, one, it's just about the same size and weight as the 686 357 Magnum. Not a lot of difference in them. In fact, it's just about a similar size, a little bit bigger than the 45 ACP semi-automatic handgun as our Colt here. So you're really not talking about that much more bulk, but typically the revolvers don't have as much recoil. And we're going to show you something in just a moment I think that will surprise you on shooting one of these guns. But there are a number of advantages. One, the 45 ACP is a very effective close-range defensive round, especially with the great Federal Hydroshocks or these Corbon 200 grain jacketed hollow points. And another thing you don't have to worry about is whether or not your gun will feed the different profiles in 45 ACP, because if they'll go in the cylinder on one of these guns, they'll shoot simply because it doesn't have to go in and out of a chamber such as on the semi-automatics. So there are a number of advantages that these guns have. Another advantage that the 45 ACP has over, say, a 357 is noise. I don't know if any of you have ever shot a 357 Magnum indoors, but I have. And trust me on this one, it wasn't too pleasant. In fact, the noise from a full charge 357 can be somewhat disoriented. And of course, then your ears ring for days if you don't have any permanent deafness. Well, the 45 ACP cartridge is just not that loud. It operates at much lower pressures. You just don't have nearly as big a bang. And with the proper bullet profile, the performance is just excellent in the 45 ACP. You know, this is a gun that I think has been terribly overlooked by a lot of security people or police officers, because a lot of people aren't comfortable with the mechanism on a semi-automatic. A lot of people have guns for home defense and won't touch them maybe once a year, something like that. So the semi-automatics are much easier to mismanage or mishandle than the simplicity of the revolver. The revolver just has everything in the world going for it for home defense. Also, you have the great 45 ACP snake shot loads that shoot just as well in these revolvers as anything else. And of course, you can change your loads instantly by just going to another clip loaded with ammunition. So it's so neat. You know, on a semi-automatic pistol, you can look at your magazine and you're not really sure, because one, you can't see all the bullets. You can't tell what's loaded down in the magazine past the first or second shell. But on these revolvers, you can take it out, you can see exactly what you have loaded in your gun. So, as I said earlier, this is really overlooked as a police type gun because you're not worried about overpenetration. You can get specialty ammunition for the 45 ACP and enjoy all the benefits of the cartridge itself without having to go to a more complex and some would say less reliable mechanism. Now, a revolver can jam too, but I tell you what, it's not going to be nearly as likely to jam as any kind of semi-automatic. Last Sunday I was shooting in a match locally, and I was doing pretty well actually, and I didn't have that firm grip on the semi-automatic, and we know it's unloaded. I didn't have a firm grip. I was shooting one-handed, and you know what? It jammed. And that's what any of them can do. So this is one of the advantages. It doesn't make any difference what your wrist condition or whatever else is on one of these revolvers. It's going to go off. If you're falling down or having to grapple, say a police officer having to grapple with someone who's attacking him, the gun is still going to reliably fire. So I tell you what, it could be worth a lot in a pinch. And I'm not recommending, say, semi-automatics or revolvers one over the other. It's just what you like and what you want to use and what you're willing to spend time learning to use. That's the, if I don't say anything else worthwhile today, that is something that needs to be emphasized. You've got to spend time understanding either gun type. The semi-automatics do take more work. They do take a little more concentration on understanding the mechanism, because you have more things that in fact can go wrong on a semi-automatic. Well, you don't have as much capacity on the revolver, but I really think that magazine capacity is vastly overrated and the importance of which is overstated. We need to concentrate more on our marksmanship and what we're shooting and how we're shooting. So I really don't think that one has a great advantage over the other as far as as firepower or magazine capacity. It's what you do with the shots you have available. And of course, your 625s can be reloaded so rapidly and be put back into action. All right, let's shoot the gun and take a look at it and get your opinion on it. Now friends, before we shoot our paper target here, let's take a look, in fact take a listen at just how loud the full charge 357 Magnum is. You know, let's shoot it one time with full charge ammunition. Woo! Yes, in fact, they are loud. Now then, let's take our 45 ACP and load in our 625. Now then, let's listen to how loud that is. I think you'll be able to tell. No comparison. And of course, just not a lot of recoil at all. So let's do something here. Let's, obviously the gun does not have much recoil, but let's go one step further. Let's see how long that it takes us to shoot as far as speed of shooting several guns here. Let's try the 45 ACP semi-automatic pistol, and let's try our new Ruger P91. Let's try it. We're going to go for comparisons here and just see, in fact, how long it takes to shoot 5 shots on our paper. So let's check that. We have our pro timer. We've also got our we've got our shooting range cat, who is not afraid of gunfire. My standard old black tomcat that you folks saw a few weeks ago on the program. That's the darndest thing I ever saw. You know, I thought he was deaf for a while, but when I say come for supper, I mean he can hear that. But gunfire, now Kitty, you got to move. You're not going to like this. And we don't advocate shooting, certainly around animals. This is something, certainly I think a lot of my old cat, I'm not going to endanger him, but he's just not concerned all about gunfire. Why? I don't know. Anyway, Kitty, you got to go. Come here. Come here. All right, friends, we have 5 cartridges here remaining in our clip of the 230 grain standard 45 ACP loading. And as I said earlier, one of the beauty parts about the 45 ACP cartridge, it does not depend on velocity. It depends on a big bullet with a good bit of weight and the type of bullet to be effective. Well, let's take a look on our paper target here, and let's see how long it takes, including my reaction time. I'll start from a semi-ready position. Go ahead and punch our timer, and now let's shoot 5 shots. Okay, including my reaction time, that took 1.32 seconds for 5 shots. And we know we're empty. And I load our gun. Okay, friends, what we have here is we have a group. In fact, there's 3 or 4 in one hole and 2 flyers there, which of course we're real close and extreme rapid fire. Not too bad a group. These guns are so easy to hit with. But we got marked our target here, 1.32 seconds with the 625 Smith & Wesson revolver, 45 ACP. Now then, let's try the same drill on another spot here on the target with our 45 ACP semi-automatic.
Friends, we'll come right back to our demonstration for the shooting show after this 1-minute break for your local cable company or television station.
All right, friends, we have our Colt 45 ACP semi-automatic. So let's punch our timer again. We're going to shoot at a little different place on the target. We're going to shoot 5 shots. Let's see how long it takes. I'll be in a semi-ready position, and we'll have our safety on. All right? All right. right, that took 1.27 seconds. So let's, we got our gun on safe. In fact, let's unload it. Check it. Yep, it is in fact unloaded. Now then, walk over to our target here. You know, in fact, here's the group from the 45 semi-automatic pistol, and heck, it's not as good a group as the 625. It took 1.27 seconds with from the 1911. So, you know, we're only talking about 0.05 of a second in speed from the 625 revolver and the 45 ACP, the 1911. So not much difference in time at all. And now, just for fun, since we're here, let's take our 40 caliber double action semi-automatic and we'll shoot at another spot over here and let's see what it looks like. Okay, friends, in the two 45 ACP guns we'll be shooting the same ammunition, the 230 grain full metal jacket at about 825 feet per second. So now then, let's try, just for a comparison, let's try the 40 caliber with 180 grain bullet moving about 940 feet per second. So let's time it, and again, starting from the double action position, just standard double action semi-automatic pistol. So let's try this again from a semi-ready. All right, friends, with our 40 caliber and our Ruger P91, it took 1.53 seconds, and our group is pretty good. In fact, we had two in one hole there. So 1.53 seconds with the P91. So what we've proven here is that, and plus, I think the double action semi-automatic was a little slower, 1.53 versus 1.27, about a quarter of a second away, because of the double action first shot. We have a great regard for that handgun. If you like double action semi-automatic, certainly it's one of the best. But you can see that your revolver is extremely accurate, and the time is very, very close to the 1911, the semi-automatic 45 ACP. So there's really not enough difference to worry about. And in fact, our group is excellent for the full charge ammunition we're shooting. Now then, on our 40 caliber P91 group, we have a good group, but we don't have as powerful a loading that we're shooting. So, and even at that, even though it's not quite as powerful, it still took longer than either the revolver or the 1911. So really, the revolver is at no disadvantage whatsoever. And now then, let's move out to about 10 yards or so on falling plates and see what that looks like. All right, friends, we're going to shoot our steel targets with our 625 revolver. And those of you that watch every week, you'll realize that we change the height and the order of the target stands that we use on our steel plates, because one, it causes you to think. I don't have a particular order of shooting them, because you can't get in the habit of just bang, bang, bang right down the list. You have to actually aim and take a deliberate shot at each one. So let's turn our timer on here, and let's shoot our steel plates. We're going to compare our revolver to our two semi-automatics. So let's just see where we are. Now then, friends, let's time our shots from our revolver on our steel falling plates here and see just what it looks like time-wise. So I'll go ahead and punch a timer. I do have my hearing protection in. You know, I've always got eye protection on down here at the range. So let's see what it looks like with our 625 revolver. Okay, that took 3.47 seconds for 5 shots on the steel plates. So let's try the same drill with our semi-automatics. Of course, we've got one, we'll unload our gun. Now then, friends, let's try that same drill again. And you know, I'll say again, here I am, your average shooter, In fact, I don't get to shoot one gun enough to really get as nearly as proficient as I'd like to, but I do about as well as a lot of you would be doing here today, doing the same drill. So this gives you an idea of what your average person is going to do with similar handguns. So, same drill. We have our 1911 loaded. Yes, it is. Safety on. Let's go ahead and punch our timer. And the same drill. Let's see how long it takes. From 3.47 seconds with the revolver. .28 seconds. So it's not that far away. 3.47, 3.28. Not enough difference to really be very concerned about. Let's go ahead and unload our semi-automatic. All right, friends, we're going to try this same drill we just did with the semi-automatic, the 1911, and the 625 revolver with the P91 double action semi-automatic, the decocker model. And let's see, and this is a one-time through drill. If I miss, that's okay, I'm going to keep shooting. So we're just going to go with the simplicity of what we're doing on a one-time drill. See what it looks like. Go ahead and punch the timer. Semi-ready position. .328. Of course, I decocked the gun. It's now safe. .328. So I believe we're looking at the same time for the 1911. Didn't really make much difference on timing. So you can see, and of course, the only difference in the 1911 and this gun, as far as ammunition, is about 50 grains per bullet, and the 45 is not moving quite as fast, but it has a little more recoil than the 180 grain 40 caliber. So really not a bad time with the double action semi-automatic, better than I thought. In fact, I was going to do. But you can see the revolver is absolutely competitive with both types of semi-automatics with a little practice. Certainly, if you're proficient with a semi-automatic, there's no reason you can't be proficient with our 625 revolver. So these are great competition guns for the action shooters who are using them in competition. But again, they're excellent home defense guns. They're also good small game guns. You don't have a lot of noise, not a lot of recoil. And let's do one other thing while we're working with our 625 revolver. Let's take a look at the snake shot pattern briefly. All right, friends, let's make us, we're talking about the snake shot. Let's draw us an ugly, how about an ugly Louisiana cottonmouth water moccasin? In fact, we'll start here. We'll draw an ugly snake. Make his old tongue stick out there. All right. I'll tell you, that's a pretty ugly drawing, but let me tell you what, we got some ugly snakes down here in Louisiana. Now then, we're going to use the Spear 45 ACP snake shot. And it works pretty reliably in the semi-automatics as well as in the revolvers, but to my way of thinking, it's just made for the revolver. So let's back up here a little bit. We're going to take aim at the snake's head there, and let's see just what kind of job our 625 with the snake shot does on our vicious. Oh heck, let's just make a little mark here. Vicious, Louisiana. Vicious Louisiana water snake. Okay. Now then, our gun's loaded. We're going to get about 6 feet away from our drawing of our snake there, and let's see what it looks like shooting the snake's head, which is about as close as I want to get. Woo! You can see it even at 6 feet. Our patterns are pretty tight, but let me tell you what, friends, that did a job on that snake. And this is something that is so useful. In these guns, you don't have to worry about whether or not it's going to cycle or going to function. All you have to do is shoot the doggone snake. And for those of us who spend a lot of time outdoors, this is a real consideration. And that certainly makes this all-weather, as in stainless steel, 45 ACP extremely attractive. The great Smith & Wesson 625 revolver.
Now, friends, if you have a 625 revolver or a 1917 Smith & Wesson or Colt in 45 ACP, or a 610 revolver or a 9mm revolver, well, please, what you need to do is get a pencil and write down this address. That's Ranch Products, Post Office Box 145, Malenta, Ohio. And Malenta is spelled M-A-L-I-N-T-A. That zip code is 43535. Now, they also make a number of other accessories for several different guns. They're very nice people, and we strongly suggest that you write to them and get their product list or order some of the full moon clips for whatever gun you have. They make the extraction tool, which removes the empty brass from the clip, and it's just as handy as can be. So we highly recommend Ranch Products, and if you have any one of these guns or are thinking about buying one, well, these folks here can fix you up with what you need.
It's fast. It's exciting. It's challenging. It's fun. This is the USPSA, United States Practical Shooting Association, the fastest growing sport in America today. If you'd like to become more proficient and confident with your firearm, meet new and interesting people, and compete with thousands around the world, join the USPSA. There's a local chapter near you.
Friends, stay tuned for more of the Shootin' Show after this break for your local cable company or TV station. And now, friends, for this week's feature from Art Alphin, that is Lieutenant Colonel Art Alphin, retired from his days at West Point. He is now with the great A-Square Company, builders of some of the finest high-powered rifles and ammunition in the world. For more information on A-Square products, write to them at A-Square, 1 Industrial Park, Bedford, Kentucky. That zip code is 40006, or give them a call, area 502-255-7456.
You are looking at a photograph of a U.S. Army soldier of the 1880s on the rifle range. He is in the Creedmoor position, the equivalent of our prone position today, and used for shooting at over 600 yards. The 1870s and 80s saw the growth in the U.S. and Britain of a feverish interest in rifle marksmanship. Almost all rifle matches included stages of fire at 600, 800, and 1,000 yards. High scores would indicate that all rounds at 1,000 yards had fallen into a bullseye 3 feet in diameter. By the 1880s, the scoring rings were consistently being shrunk, and high scores indicated still higher standards of marksmanship. Long-range rifle fire was not a trick and was put to use in the American West. The most famous incident of long-range shooting occurred in June 1874 at the Battle of Adobe Walls in the Texas Panhandle. In this battle, 24 buffalo hunters had been trapped in a cluster of adobe buildings by a war party of Indians. In the lull after 2 unsuccessful attacks, a group of Indians were seen sitting on their ponies on a bluff. A buffalo hunter by the name of Billy Dixon took his .50-90 Sharps rifle, adjusted his sights, and fired a shot, toppling one of the Indians from his horse. That shot ended the Battle of Adobe Walls. The distance from Dixon's position to the Indian was later surveyed and found to be 1,538 yards. It may have been a lucky shot, but it was certainly a shot that could only have been made with the proper rifle used by the proper individual. This was the Sharps long-range buffalo rifle. While some Westerners wanted compatibility of ammunition between their rifle and their revolver and were willing to sacrifice range to get it, there was a large number of Westerners and Eastern target shooters who wanted long-range effectiveness. For this long-range effectiveness, they paid a price in a slightly reduced volume of fire, greater weight of the weapon, and more money spent on ammunition consumed in practice. The practice was required because muzzle velocities were still low. Combat ranges were about 160 yards battle sight and 400 adjust sight. Beyond this, range estimation became more and more critical. At ranges of 1,000 yards, for example, range estimation had to be very tight, and normally the shooter had to re-zero his rifle for that range. With the 45 and 50 caliber bullets involved, this re-zeroing could be done by watching the impact of the bullet. A shooter could put 1 or 2 rounds in the dirt in front of a buffalo herd, readjust his sights, and then begin dropping buffalo. It is against this background that a series of developments took place in the 1880s and 90s. The first development was smokeless powder. This was nothing more than the harnessing of nitroglycerin and nitrocellulose in a solid form. Though black powder and smokeless powder may look the same, they are vastly different. Smokeless powder had far more energy per unit weight and per volume than did black powder. Further, by controlling the composition and the size of the granules of the powder, its burning rate could be controlled and therefore tailored to any application at hand. This development meant that muzzle velocities far in excess of those attained with black powder were now possible. But if the large bore cartridges were used, then the recoil from large bullets being launched at high velocities would be far beyond what the average man could withstand. Consequently, the introduction of smokeless powder caused an immediate reduction in bore sizes from the 45 caliber range down to the 30 caliber range. As the bores became smaller and velocities higher, the naked lead bullet could not withstand the heat and pressure of launch. This brought about new bullets where the lead did not touch the bore. 2 Swiss, Schmidt and Rubin, came up with the first practical jacketed bullets. A jacketed bullet is just as you see here, a gilding metal envelope surrounding a lead core. The lead gives the bullet weight and density, while the jacket gives strength and keeps the lead from touching the bore. The same 2 individuals, along with numerous others, were working on new systems of storing cartridges within the weapon. The French, after the adoption of smokeless powder, had simply necked down their old black powder cartridge case to 8mm Lebel and put it in a weapon that was only a slight improvement from their basic Chassepot and Gras designs. Their rifle even included a tubular magazine. Schmidt and Rubin, along with a number of others, such as Mannlicher of Austria and Mauser of Germany, wanted to store the cartridges one on top of the other so that the nose of the bullet of one cartridge would not be pressing against the primer of the next cartridge. To this end, Schmidt and Rubin made the sides of the cartridge case parallel so that they would stack neatly and eliminated the rim on the cartridge. The rim of the cartridge was normally what the extractor worked upon, so they turned an extractor groove in the base of the cartridge. The rimless cartridge was born, and the box magazine, where cartridges are stacked one on top of the other, was now practical. Mannlicher decided that if a box magazine could be had, then it no longer be loaded with individual cartridges. He created the Mannlicher clip loading system, or what we now call the N-block clip. In this system, the weapon itself had the magazine follower and follower spring. The N-block clip, holding anywhere from 3 to 6 cartridges, was pressed into the weapon from the top and retained in it. The N-block clip held the cartridges and provided the feed lips, while the rifle provided the follower and follower spring. After firing the last shot, the Mannlicher clip simply dropped out the bottom of the rifle, the soldier inserted a new clip of rounds from above, and was ready to fire. By 1893, Mauser had improved this still further by discarding the single column, that is, cartridges stacked one above the other, and creating the staggered double column box magazine. The advantage to this was that the magazine was wholly within the rifle and virtually immune from handling damage. Further, the feed lips were milled into the steel of the receiver, thereby being much stronger than the flimsy sheet metal of the N-block clips. In order to load this magazine rapidly, Mauser designed the stripper clip. This clip holds 5 rounds and is inserted into the weapon from above. The rounds are then pushed into the magazine and the stripper clip discarded. While all this development was going on, one should remember that cartridge cases were constantly being made stronger. Further, the metallurgical industry and the machine tool industry were enjoying rapid advances in the 1880s and 90s. Alloy steels were being introduced, and man's knowledge of heat treatment of steel was improving. The improvements in the machine tool industry meant that products could be made in larger quantity and with much greater precision. Without going into the history of specific weapons, the industrialized nations of the world all had magazine-fed bolt-action rifles of one sort or another by the 1890s. One might ask, however, if the black powder breech loaders were regularly shooting to 1,000 yards, what advantage did the bolt action have over them? Watch the following scene carefully. See if you can spot the advantages. The sharp-eyed among you will have picked out 2 things. The first was the charger loading of the bolt-action magazine rifle. The other factor is more subtle, though perhaps more important. You should have seen that out to 330 yards, the bolt-action magazine rifle fired from battle sight, while the black powder breech loader had to adjust sights. This is due to a number of factors. The bolt action was much stronger and could withstand higher pressures. This, coupled with smokeless powder, jacketed bullets, and stronger cartridge cases meant much higher muzzle velocities. On the chart, this difference becomes obvious. The volume of fire with the bolt-action magazine rifle is roughly double that of the single-shot black powder breech loader, while its battle sight and adjust sight range is greatly improved. Initially, this was roughly double the breech loader. By the turn of the century, man became better educated as to aerodynamics, and the bullets changed from the heavy round nose that you see on the left to the lighter, higher velocity Spitzer bullets, which were also much more aerodynamically efficient. This resulted in the total difference, a rough tripling of battle sight and adjust sight range. This is an extremely important point, and I'd like to illustrate this with two other methods. This next chart shows the drop of 4 different bullet cartridge combinations. The first curve is a .45 caliber bullet at black powder velocities. Notice how much flatter the curve is when the same bullet is fired at the smokeless powder velocities of the 1890s and 1900s. The first curve, by the way, is the 45-70 rifle. The third curve is a round nose .30 caliber bullet, which is aerodynamically inefficient, but fired at smokeless powder velocities. The fourth curve is a bullet of the same weight at the same velocity, but using a Spitzer boat tail, a very aerodynamically efficient bullet. By the way, this fourth curve is the curve for the M14 rifle and M60 machine gun. Let's put these curves to practical use. I have here a series of targets. One set of targets was fired with a 45-70, the second with a 30-06. They duplicate the first and fourth curves you just saw. Both rifles are equipped with telescopic sights, and both rifles were fired from a shooter's bench rest, as you see here. The purpose of the bench rest and the telescopic sight is to eliminate as much human error as possible so as to better illustrate the trajectories of the weapons involved. Both rifles were zeroed so as to take maximum advantage of their battle sight ranges. From that point, each rifle was fired at 100 yards and at 330 yards, aiming, in all cases, between the breast pockets of the enemy. You can see that both rifles did well at 100 yards. But at 330 yards, the 30-06 was still at battle sight, while the bullets from the 45-70 had fallen dramatically. This illustrates the point. The more highly curved the trajectory, the more critical range estimation becomes. What did all this mean? It meant that the shooter, for an equal amount of training, could be more deadly at longer ranges in a combat situation. At 350 yards or less, he simply fired battle sight at the highest rate that he could manipulate his weapon. Lastly, the volume of fire was now getting high enough to the point where men no longer need stand shoulder to shoulder. They could be spread out in skirmish line and still generate sufficient volume of fire to stop any sort of mass charge. All of this happened well within the career length of an officer of the day. It frequently occurred that lieutenants who gained their experience with single-shot black powder breech loaders would go off to staff and, after numerous promotions, would come back to command units equipped with weapons beyond anything they had ever dreamed of. A good example of the effect of this on the battlefield is the Boer War. In this war, the British initially attempted to fight with stand-up formations and mass charges. They were quickly slaughtered by the Boers. This is the real comparison of the single-shot black powder breech loader with the smokeless powder magazine-fed bolt-action rifle. You will study the ideas of Dupique and de Grand Maison and the ensuing history of World War I. When you do, remember the changes that occurred from 1886 to 1905. You should ask yourself, how fast does man learn when times change? How fast will you learn as times change now?
The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or television station. You know, friends, all of us as shooters would do extremely well to get a subscription to Shotgun News, the trading post for anything that shoots. All sorts of firearms bargains and useful information to all of us interested in the shooting sports. Shotgun News, Post Office Box 669, Hastings, Nebraska. That zip code is 68902. Their phone number is area 402-463-4589. MasterCard or Visa subscriptions only. Call 1-800-345-6923. Now, friends, if you're interested in a custom handgun, please think of Clark Custom Guns Incorporated in Keithville, Louisiana. Champion guns made by champion shooters. Write to them at Clark Custom Guns Incorporated, Post Office Box 530, Keithville, Louisiana. That zip code is 71047. Or give them a call, area 318-925-0836.
I'm here once again for the Shootin' Show with my friend and business associate Mark Strickland. And Mark and I were just talking a moment ago, and I was telling him, I bet you this is one gun he's never seen anything like. You know? What Mark's got in his hands here is a standard Walther P38. Now, this is one of the guns that was a West German police pistol and was turned in, sort of trade-in against new Walther pistols. And a lot of these guns wound up coming to the United States, and they were a great buy, Mark. I mean, this was great. I know you like to find a bargain in a gun sometimes, and this was just fantastic because these guns were selling for around $250, $260 retail with a spare magazine and a full-flap military police holster. And it was just really fantastic. And they were such a good buy that what I did was I got two of them. Because when I was a kid, I was a big fan of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And I loved that show. And I'd always wanted an Uncle gun. Now, for a while, I had a Walther P38K, which is a more modern version of the P38 9mm, and it has a short barrel, and sometimes it was called a Gestapo barrel because during World War II, some Lugers and some Walther P38s were cut down so they'd have a snub-nosed barrel. But that just wasn't quite right for me. And so what I did was I got together with my friend gunsmith Lynn Trapper Alexiou. And Trapper's really well known. He is an expert in terms of firearms refinishing, but these days he's specializing in other aspects of gunsmithing. And he's also got a good sense of humor. So I asked Trapper, hey, if I sent you up a really nice Walther P38, and it doesn't have any collector value, so one of these police turn-in guns, could you, if I told you what I wanted, could you turn it into an uncle gun for me, right? So this took some difficulty on Trapper's part, and he is a patient guy. As you can see in the front here, I've got a basket-style flash deflector, and the barrel has been cut off well past where the barrel is on the one that you're holding, and it's really just right in front of the slide, as it were. And of course, that gets rid of the front sight, like you have on the front of that barrel. So a front sight had to be sweated on here. And then, after we had the flash deflector on and the front sight, the first time, I'll be real honest with you, the first time we did it, we got the gun back, and the silver solder hadn't been prepared properly, so we're out there getting ready to shoot, and whammo, parts fall off, right? So we sent it back to Trap, and he fixed it up, and it's worked like a charm ever since. And I even connived him into engraving Uncle across the top. And then the grips, I don't know if you notice these or not, but now these are modern Walther P38 grips that are on this gun, but the grips that are on this gun are actual World War II vintage guns, grips, the kind that you'd find on one of the Gray Ghost Walthers that have been offered by Inter-Arms in the past. And, this, does not have a shoulder stock or an extension magazine or a telescopic sight on it or anything like that, and it's certainly not selective fire. But it is an interesting gun. I've put it in magazine articles several times, and this is one of the guns that people always write to me about. Where can I get a gun like your Uncle gun? I had a gentleman who called me on the telephone about a month or so ago and said, I found myself a really nice P38. Now, who could turn it into an Uncle gun like yours? And it was an interesting show. It was a lot of fun, and we always enjoyed it. And so I've got my very own semi-Uncle gun. Yeah, semi-Uncle gun.
Now, friends, those of you who read Jerry Ahern's columns in different publications know he's a very fine writer, certainly from his articles and from his books, but he is also a very fine holster manufacturer. So for information on the Ahern holster systems, he has a number of different things for sale. Please write to him at Ahern Enterprises Incorporated, Post Office Box 186. That's in Commerce, Georgia. That zip code is 30529. Now, if you want to order something from Jerry, Visa or MasterCard orders only, that number is 1-800-285-1245. Jerry's a heck of a nice guy, a very fine enthusiast, and we're so pleased to have him on our show. You'll remember a couple of weeks ago we had a feature on the Butt Buddy long gun holster, and our response was so strong, and apparently some of you didn't get the telephone number and address on where you can purchase these long gun holsters, that we're going to have a little refresher course today. And we will remind you that they are for sale in the Cabela's catalog.
The long gun holster was invented to chase quail and pheasant around the state of Kansas. As it turned out, once we got it invented, we found out it's like having three hands, because whether you're glassing for deer, you're waiting on your hunting buddy, or waiting on your dog, about 85% of the time that you have a long gun in your hand, be it a deer rifle or a shotgun, you're waiting on somebody, your buddy, your friends, or what. You kick the holster around to the front pocket. It's totally weightless, totally controlled, but yet totally safe. As a result, you're always ready. Before you take that first step and go walking, you pull the holster to the side like you were wearing a sidearm. You wear a good wide second belt, okay? Once to the side, when you pull the firearm in, the firearm sets in your hand. You're not carrying and holding, you're rather balancing. Should you ever start to fall, whatever direction, you've got a free hand to stop it, all the while controlling the muzzle of that firearm. The deer hunter and elk hunter out in Colorado have taught us, Greg, trade me firearms here, have taught us when you have a mountain or a hill or a rock slide that you need all four hands to get up, what they do is pull the firearm behind them, duck inside their sling, set the firearm back in the holster. They've now got all four hands to get up a mountain. You'll notice that their hands are free, but should they need the firearm very quickly, if their target should suddenly appear, it's a matter of reaching around, lifting on the firearm, bending at the waist, knocking your head off, but you've still got a shot. sports doctor, weightlifter, surgeon taught us you carry a 10-pound gun for 4 miles. That's normally a morning of walking. Because of the impact of starting back and forth, this 10-pound firearm will turn into 140,000 pounds of iron and wood or plastic pumped. This 12-pound shotgun here, 6-pound shotgun, carried 4 miles, turns out to 96,000 pounds. The little bones, the little muscles are not intended to do that type of exercise. That's why once the butt of the firearm is put in the holster, all of the impact of the firearm goes down to the big bones and the big muscles.
To order your butt buddy, call Long Gun Holster at 1-800-345-2195.
Now, friends, for the absolute best in monthly shooting magazines, turn to Shooting Times magazine. With all sorts of excellent features on handguns, rifles, shotguns, and black powder by some of your favorite gun writers, such as Dick Metcalf and Rick Jameson and Bill Jordan, just to name a few. Each month, you'll find interesting articles on guns, shooting, reloading, and new products in the firearms industry, along with information on pending legislation of interest to all gun owners. For subscription information, call 1-800-727-4353. Shooting Times, the best there is.
You know, guns have been a part of the American tradition since the days when much of this country was still a frontier. Hi, I'm Gritch Gresham. Sure, much has changed since then, but that tradition still carries with it a personal obligation to use guns in a safe and responsible manner, and to speak up if you see others using or storing guns improperly. Remember, for every freedom we enjoy comes a responsibility we must assume. This message is a public service of this station and the National Shooting Sports Foundation.
Friends, we hope you've enjoyed today's program, and we want to remind everyone that if you know a manufacturer or a business that would like to buy some advertising time on the Shootin' Show, we'll certainly be happy to talk to them. They can write to us at the Shootin' Show, 554 Kings Highway, Shreveport, Louisiana. Our zip code is 71104. Our phone number is area 318-222-8515. And you know this project is so important to all of us because, friends, let me tell you what, the anti-gun people are coming after us. They are not knocking at the door, they're climbing in the windows. So the Shootin' Show is so important because we reach people all over America that don't buy these shooting magazines, that don't have access to the information that we're giving them. We look forward to seeing you again next week on the Shootin' Show.